Let me tell you something about managing an intergalactic death arena. It's not all fun and games and blood-soaked entertainment. Oh no, the paperwork alone would make your eye stalks curl. My name is Grax Pommel, Senior Vice Executive of Combat Acquisitions at GalactaFight Entertainment Network. Fancy title, right? Means I'm the poor sucker who has to find fresh meat for the grinders. 15 rotational cycles I've been at this job, and let me tell you, the benefits package isn't worth the nightmares. But Grax, my supervisor Lumpzandar, always says, waving his bloated tentacles in my face, ratings are dropping. The Zentorian hive mind is threatening to pull advertising. Find something exciting or find a new job. That's the problem with being the third largest entertainment conglomerate in 7-star systems. The pressure never stops. The board of directors, 27 amorphous blobs who haven't done an honest day's work in their gelatinous lives, they expect quarterly growth. Always. Even during a galactic recession. And then there's the sacrifice quota system. Don't get me started on that bureaucratic nightmare. Every planet we conquer has to provide a certain number of combatants based on population density, atmospheric quality, and how much the fleet admiral dislikes their architecture. It's all very scientific and completely arbitrary. Most conquered species get it. They send their criminals, their outcasts, occasionally a political dissident who made the wrong Grand Marshal angry. The Flurbongs even hold competitions to select their tributes, very sporting of them, considering we melted their moon as a negotiation tactic. But humans? Humans were supposed to be easy. When Commander Plex annexed that watery little dirtball called Earth, the intelligence report classified humans as squishy, easily punctured, and with laughably inadequate defensive capabilities. Perfect arena fodder. The kind that dies dramatically and keeps the sponsors happy. Nobody expected her. And nobody expected that I'd be the one explaining to the board why their prize arena is now running a deficit for the first time in 600 standard years. Humans? Hey. Our biological assessment team practically laughed themselves into a molting cycle when they studied Earth specimens. No armor plating, no venom glands, no redundant organ systems, not even a decent set of claws. Just these ridiculous 5-fingered appendages and soft, hairless skin you could puncture with a dinner utensil. These creatures evolved as apex predators? Director Quibb had asked during the briefing, his 4 mouths all snickering simultaneously. With those limbs? What did they hunt? Particularly slow-moving pillows? The intelligence report rated humans as Class D combatants barely above the gas-based Hushians who, let's be honest, can be defeated by a stiff breeze and a match. Our marketing department was disappointed. They prefer Class C opponents that at least put up a fight before being spectacularly dismembered. So when the transport ship delivered our first batch of human tributes, I wasn't expecting much. We processed them like any other new acquisitions: decontamination, translator implants, behavior modification chips. Standard procedure. That's when I first saw Tessa Bell, 5'7" of unremarkable biped, brown fur on top, pink dermal layer everywhere else. The guards didn't even bother with maximum restraints, just a basic wrist binding. She stood there in the processing line, looking around with those weird forward-facing eyes, occasionally making that strange barking sound humans call laughter. "What's so funny, meat snack?" growled Guard Caproot, clacking his mandibles menacingly. "Sorry," she replied, not sounding remotely sorry. "I just realized you look exactly like my aunt's Chihuahua if it was 9 feet tall and had anger management issues." Caproot had to look up Chihuahua in his translator. He wasn't pleased. We scheduled her debut for the following day, the undercard before the main event. Gave her the standard equipment pack, 1 dull blade, 1 semi-functional shield generator, and the traditional hopeless combatant red tunic that shows bloodstains particularly well on the holocams. The audience was ecstatic. Ticket sales jumped 42% when we announced a never-before-seen species debut. The luxury boxes filled with high-spending clientele, all eager to see fresh blood. The gambling syndicates set the odds at 350 to 1 against human survival beyond 2 minutes. The concession stand stocked extra refreshments because nothing stimulates appetite like watching a new species discover creative ways to die. This will be quick and messy, I assured Lump Xandar, who had decided to attend personally. The perfect appetizer before the Krongan Championship bout. If only I'd known what was coming. If only I'd paid attention to the way she studied the arena during orientation. If only I'd wondered why she kept asking such specific questions about the arena's environmental controls. We paired her with Blort the Disemboweler. A crowd favorite. 8 straight victories. 3 arms, each ending in serrated bone blades that could slice through reinforced hull plating. The betting pools were overflowing with credits, almost all wagered on how quickly Blort would turn the human into decorative confetti. The match began conventionally enough. Blort did his signature entrance, that spinning leap followed by the ceremonial scraping of his blades that sends sparks flying across the arena. The crowd went wild, tentacles and appendages undulating in anticipation. Tessa Bell just stood there, looking almost bored, examining her dull blade like she was checking a manicure. Begin. Boomed the arena AI. Blort charged. Standard opening move. Very dramatic. Usually ends with at least 1 limb separation from the opponent. Then things went strange. Instead of running or futilely raising her shield, Tessa sprinted straight toward the arena wall. Blort, momentarily confused, followed. The human reached the environmental control panel, the one that regulates temperature for different species' comfort, and drove her blade straight into it. Alarms blared. The arena's sprinkler system activated standard fire protocol. Water cascaded down. "What is she doing?" Lump Xandar spluttered beside me, his eye stalks rigid with confusion. I started to answer when Tessa shouted something to Blort about his mother's questionable reproductive choices, which doesn't translate well but was clearly insulting. Enraged, Blort charged through the water, all 3 blade arms extended for maximum evisceration potential. That's when she dropped her shield, directly into the pooling water. The malfunctioning control panel sent an electric surge through the conductive liquid just as Blort splashed into it. Did you know Blort's species has a metal-based circulatory system? Neither did most of our audience, but everyone learned a fascinating lesson in xenobiology as 50,000 volts transformed our champion into a twitching, smoking heap. The silence in that arena? You could have heard a whispering mist beast exhale. 40,000 spectators sat in stunned disbelief. The betting syndicate's automated systems froze, unable to process the upset calculations. In the executive box, chaos erupted. Director Quib began stress molting, shedding papery skin flakes all over the imported snack platters. The advertising director fainted, all 3 of his hearts temporarily stopping. Lump Xandar turned to me, his feeding orifice opening and closing wordlessly. "It's a fluke," I assured him. "A statistical anomaly. 1 lucky victory." But even as I said it, I noticed something that sent a chill down my spinal column. Tessa Bell wasn't celebrating, wasn't playing to the suddenly cheering crowd. Instead, she was methodically examining Blort's fallen form, studying the armor plates, the joint connections, learning. For the first time in 15 rotational cycles as arena manager, I felt something new. Worry. The ratings spike was unprecedented. Within 1 planetary rotation, bootleg recordings of the human shocker reached even the outer colonies. Merchandise appeared, overnight action figures of Tessa Bell holding tiny electrical cables, novelty drinking vessels shaped like Blort's smoldering corpse, and t-shirts bearing her post-match quip, "Guess he wasn't Conductor of the Year." "We need to capitalize immediately," declared Prill, our head of marketing, his bioluminescent patches flashing with excitement. "Rebrand her as the Earthshock, give her dramatic entrance music, maybe some pyrotechnics?" Or, I suggested carefully, we arrange a rematch with someone who will definitely kill her before she becomes too popular. Lump Xandar shot down my practical approach. Are you consuming mind-altering spores? The board is ecstatic. Viewership up 340%. We've had 16 new sponsor inquiries since the match. The Blorxian beverage conglomerate wants to create a drink called Human Lightning that changes color when electrically charged. So we promoted her next match to the main event, tripled ticket prices, installed 17 new camera angles to catch every possible moment of what would surely be her demise. After all, beginner's luck only stretches so far. Her new opponent? Traxen the Mountain. A 12-foot wall of armored exoskeleton with acid sacs and crushing pincers. Completely insulated against electrical attacks, I made absolutely sure of that. What I didn't anticipate was the food poisoning. You let her work in the cafeteria? I screamed at the guard captain after Traxen collapsed mid-match, his innards explosively rejecting some mysteriously tainted nutrient cubes. She volunteered, said humans find food preparation therapeutic. How was I supposed to know she'd recognize which ingredients are mild seasoning to her but intestinal apocalypse to Traxen physiology? The third match, we took no chances. Opponent, Vapor Cloud, the gaseous assassin. No digestive system to poison, no electrical conductivity. The perfect counter. Tessa entered wearing her new officially branded armor, waved to her growing fan club, calling themselves Bells, complete with matching headgear, and promptly jammed the arena ventilation system to create a vacuum that condensed Vapor Cloud into a puzzled puddle. By her fifth victory, plush toys of Tessa Bell outsold all other arena merchandise combined. Unauthorized biographies claimed she was everything from a genetically engineered super soldier to the secret heir of Earth's ruling dynasty. Fan theories about her next creative kill clogged the galactic data networks. Behind the scenes, we tried everything. Sabotaged equipment? She improvised better weapons from the broken pieces. Bribed the other combatants to gang up on her? They formed an unlikely alliance instead, until she convinced them to turn on each other with a few well-placed insults about their ancestral spawning grounds. We even tampered with her food supply, only to discover humans can survive on practically anything. She spent a week eating the decorative fungi growing in the arena lobby and actually gained muscle mass. This is becoming problematic, I told Lump Xandar, who was no longer listening. He'd commissioned a life-size Tessa Bell ice sculpture for his offspring's molting ceremony. The traitor. We need to understand her weaknesses, declared Grand Tactician Ploon, a withered husk of a being whose 12 brains had orchestrated 3 galactic conquests. The board had brought him out of retirement specifically to deal with our human problem. Every species has exploitable biological limitations. We assembled an unprecedented lineup of deadly opponents. First came the psychic sisters of Mentalis Prime, whose telepathic attacks had driven previous champions to self-destruction. They entered Tessa's mind, only to retreat screaming about endless loop songs and something called Baby Shark. That had apparently been playing continuously in her thoughts as a defensive measure. Next, we sent in Freezer, master of absolute zero combat. Tessa responded by insulating herself with the rendered fat of the nutrient beasts from the commissary and creating an improvised flamethrower from cleaning chemicals. The resulting thaw was messy, expensive, and somehow resulted in perfectly cooked meat that she sold to audience members as popsicle steak. Maybe she has hidden cybernetic enhancements? Suggested the medical examiner after her 9th victory. We scanned her. Completely organic. Disappointingly UN augmented. Perhaps she's receiving outside assistance? Theorized Security Director Volp. We placed her in isolation. Her winning streak continued. What if humans are secretly galaxy-class warriors who have been concealing their abilities? Whispered a growing faction of conspiracy theorists on the galactic information networks. That ridiculous theory gained unfortunate credibility when we sent 12 combatants against her simultaneously, and she somehow convinced half of them that the others were receiving larger appearance fees, resulting in a chaotic battle royale that she casually strolled away from. By her 15th victory, betting on Tessa Bell matches had been outlawed in 3-star systems. The mathematical improbability of her continued success was causing computational devices to crash. Religious cults formed, declaring her the prophesied Great Disruptor, foretold in ancient space scrolls. What makes her so special? I demanded during an emergency board meeting, pounding my appendage on the table. We've studied her cellular structure, brain patterns, muscle density. Nothing extraordinary. She's just a standard human. Perhaps that's exactly the point, mused Director Quibb, who had taken to wearing a replica of Tessa's armor at social functions. We've been underestimating not just her, but her entire species. Underground information networks began circulating classified reports about Earth's history, about human wars fought with primitive weapons that nonetheless claimed millions of lives, about their rapid technological advancement from crude projectiles to atomic weapons in less than one planetary century, about their bizarre ability to adapt to almost any environment and survive conditions that would kill rational species. The conspiracy theories grew wilder. Humans can regenerate limbs, but hide this ability. Humans can mind control other species through emotional manipulation. Humans are collectively a hive mind pretending to be individuals. Meanwhile, our tactical analysts grew increasingly frustrated. Tessa showed no consistent fighting style. In each match, she adapted completely new strategies. She fought cautiously against aggressive opponents, aggressively against defensive ones. She exploited environmental factors that our own designers hadn't considered. She seemed to learn not just from her own experiences, but from observing others. It makes no logical sense, complained lead analyst Zerp after his third nervous breakdown. No species should be this adaptable. It's almost like their evolutionary strategy was just to wing it and see what happens. My personal breaking point came when I discovered that our janitorial staff had been taking combat advice from her. Combat advice. From a prisoner. As if 15 glorious cycles of arena management counted for nothing. That's when Lump Xandar made his fateful declaration. The board has approved special funding. We're creating the ultimate champion, one specifically designed to eliminate the human threat once and for all. Project Annihilation consumed resources that could have terraformed a small moon. The board diverted funds from 17 other entertainment divisions. They even canceled the popular Dancing with the Sentient Stars to free up laboratory space. The result? Vrax the Annihilator. The perfect anti-human weapon. We've combined DNA from 37 apex predator species, boasted Chief Geneticist Prill, displaying holographic renderings of the monstrosity they were creating. Armored exoskeleton impervious to electrical, chemical, and thermal attacks. Redundant nervous systems that operate independently. Sensory apparatus that can track a dust mite across a solar system. Adaptive tissue that becomes resistant to any weapon after first exposure. 6 months of accelerated growth later, I stood before the containment chamber, staring at 20 feet of perfectly engineered death. Vrax had no eyes, just sensory patches covering 90% of its surface. No distinct limbs, just weaponized appendages that could reconfigure into whatever form best suited its current combat needs. Its brain, if you could call it that, was distributed throughout its body, making it impossible to knock unconscious. Can it be controlled? I asked nervously as Vrax pulsated behind the reinforced barrier. Mostly, replied Prill with what I found to be inadequate confidence. We installed 16 behavioral inhibitors. Should hold. Probably. Meanwhile, our engineering team redesigned the arena specifically to counter known human strengths. No environmental controls she could access. No loose equipment she could repurpose. Anti-tampering measures on every surface. Atmosphere regulation to maintain optimal conditions for Vrax and suboptimal ones for human respiratory systems. We're calling it the Doom Chamber, announced head engineer Blop, puffing his throat sack with pride. Gravity can shift randomly. Terrain can transform mid-battle. Every surface is either superheated or supercooled. The only safe zones are constantly moving and shrinking. The marketing department outdid themselves. The promotional campaign reached 97% of inhabited systems. Betting resumed under new regulations designed to handle the unprecedented volume. The odds? 1,000,000,000 to 1 against Tessa Bell. Final battle of the human menace screamed headlines across the galaxy. Unstoppable meets unmovable, declared the sensational news feeds. Is this the end of the Bell era? Pondered the more intellectual publications. I've secured us the best viewing box, Lump Xandar told me, practically vibrating with excitement. The board will be attending in person. This is your chance for redemption, Grax. Once the human problem is eliminated, your career trajectory resumes. The night before the match, I visited Tessa in her holding cell. Not out of compassion, mind you, simple professional curiosity. You know what you're facing tomorrow? I asked. She was doing something bizarre with her body, repeatedly lifting herself up and down using only her upper limbs. Exercise, I gathered. Pointless, given the circumstances. Your custom-built killing machine? Yeah, saw the promotional holos. Impressive marketing budget you guys have. Could have solved galactic hunger with that money, but sure, another arena monster is cool too. You can't win this time, I informed her. Vrax was designed specifically to counter every trick you've ever used. She smiled, that strange human smile, showing those disconcertingly flat teeth. That's the problem with you guys. Always designing things to fight the last war. The betting syndicates reported unprecedented activity in the final hours. Entire planetary economies wagered on the outcome. The board took the unprecedented step of allowing betting on specific death methods, with molecular disintegration being the popular favorite. When match day arrived, the arena was beyond capacity. 80,000 spectators, another 40 billion watching via holofeed. Every luxury box filled with galactic celebrities. Even the reclusive emperor of the 12 Suns postponed a planetary annihilation to attend in person. This, declared Lump Xandar, raising a ceremonial toast with his 14 closest friends, is going to be spectacular. The match began with appropriate ceremony. Vrax was released first, its amorphous form slithering into the arena amid gasps of awe and terror. The creature pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, a display of dominance that sent several weaker constitution spectators into fainting spells. Then came Tessa Bell. No fancy entrance, just a calm walk to the center of the Doom Chamber. The crowd, previously deafening, fell into a hushed silence. She carried no weapons, wore no armor beyond the standard-issue protection vest. This struck me as suspicious immediately. Where's her equipment? I hissed to the guard captain. She declined everything except the basics, he replied, mandibles clicking nervously. Said, and I quote, sometimes less is more. Begin. Thundered the arena AI. Vrax moved with terrifying speed, its body morphing into a bladed whirlwind. The chamber's gravity shifted, floor panels heated to magma temperatures, hidden spikes emerged from walls. It's the perfect killing environment. Tessa stood still, completely motionless. What is she doing? Screeched Lump Xandar, stress shedding all over our luxury refreshments. Vrax circled cautiously, sensory patches quivering. It had been programmed to expect tricks, traps, the usual Tessa Bell shenanigans. This stillness confused its tactical subroutines. Finally, Vrax attacked, extending a barbed tentacle designed to paralyze on contact. That's when Tessa Bell did the truly unexpected. She spoke directly to the arena itself. Arena Security Override Protocol, Voice Authorization Zulu 906. The chamber lights flickered. The gravity stabilized. What's happening? Demanded Director Quib, his ceremonial robes suddenly soaked with panic secretions. I knew exactly what was happening. She's hacked the arena controls. But that's impossible. The authorization codes change hourly. From her mouth came the voice of our own lead engineer Blop. The only safe zones are constantly moving and shrinking. A perfect vocal reproduction that sent chills through my exoskeleton. The arena AI, confused by contradictory commands, initiated emergency containment protocols. Vrax found itself trapped between security fields designed to protect audience members in case of catastrophic combatant escape. Tessa strolled casually toward the main control conduit. The same conduit we had specifically armored against tampering. "Guess what I've been doing during my off hours?" she called out, her voice magnified by the arena's own speaker system. "Making friends with your maintenance staff. Turns out the night shift supervisor loves to talk about system architecture after a few Neptunian fire liquors." She placed her hand on the supposedly tamper-proof panel. It recognized her palm print and opened. In the executive box, chaos erupted. The board members began panic molting simultaneously, creating a blizzard of shed exoskeletons. The betting syndicate representatives watched in horror as their financial algorithms crashed spectacularly, unable to calculate payouts for an event with trillion-to-1 odds. Grax, enraged, began to reconfigure itself to break through the containment fields. Its behavioral inhibitors glowed red with strain. "Oh, I also studied your genetic engineering schematics," Tessa added conversationally, pulling wires from the control panel. "Fascinating stuff. Did you know Vrax has a genetic self-destruct sequence? Something about preventing it from getting out of control. Very responsible of you." She crossed 2 wires. Vrax's body began to convulse. The override code is surprisingly simple. Just a specific electromagnetic pulse sequence. She connected a 3rd wire. The arena lights pulsed in a particular pattern. Vrax the Annihilator, 20 feet of perfectly engineered death, began to dissolve from within, its cellular structure rapidly breaking down into component proteins. Its death throes nearly took out half the arena seating before it collapsed into a steaming puddle of genetic material. Silence fell. Then came the screams not from the audience, but from the executive booth. Financial ruin on an unprecedented scale was unfolding in real time as the betting algorithms finally calculated the payouts. Entire fortunes vanished instantly. Lump Xandar fell face first into the refreshment platter, unconscious. Director Quibb's ceremonial robes had been shed entirely, leaving him naked and gibbering. I just sat there, watching my 15-cycle career dissolve as completely as Vrax had. 3 Galactic Standard months later, I found myself in the most humiliating position of my career. Seated across from Tessa Bell in what used to be Lump Xandar's office, signing papers that fundamentally restructured the entire combat entertainment industry. "So we're agreed?" she said, casually propping her feet on the desk, a position of dominance that would have been unthinkable before the Vrax incident. "All human prisoners released, Earth's sacrifice quota reduced to 0, and GalactaFight Entertainment transitions to simulated combat only." "The board has approved your terms," I replied, trying to maintain some shred of dignity. "Though I should inform you that 12 board members resigned in protest, 3 suffered complete financial collapse, and 1 spontaneously dematerialized from pure shame." She grinned. "Tough break. Oh, and I'll be taking that executive producer role we discussed. I have some ideas for new programming, something called reality shows. Much cheaper to produce than death matches and surprisingly more addictive to viewers." The galactic entertainment landscape had been transformed overnight. Betting syndicates had collapsed after paying out the few lunatics who'd wagered on Tessa. 3 major conglomerates had filed for bankruptcy protection. The Emperor of the 12 Suns had fled into exile after losing 6 planets in a side wager. And me? Demoted but still employed. Apparently, the human found my perpetual exasperation entertaining. "You know," I said, finally asking the question that had haunted me for months, "you could have escaped any time. You knew the systems had made connections. Why stay and fight at all?" Tessa leaned forward, suddenly serious. Because your reports on humans were fundamentally wrong, Grax. You thought we were weak because we lack natural weapons. The truth? We turned our entire planet into a weapon. Everything's a potential tool. Everyone's a potential ally. That's how we survived as squishy, clawless creatures on a world full of predators. She stood to leave, pausing at the door. Besides, how else would I get a controlling interest in the third largest entertainment conglomerate in 7-star systems? I've got big plans, Grax. Ever heard of something called competitive cooking shows? Trust me, it's going to be huge. As I watched her stroll away, whistling some Earth tune, I realized a disturbing truth. The human hadn't just survived our arena. She'd converted it into an opportunity. If the rest of her species thought like that, well, I've quietly transferred my personal assets to a distant moon, just in case. And I've begun learning their language. Something tells me it might come in handy soon.